Okay, today's topic is the Roman calendar system. It's really kind of fun. You need to know 5 terms, 1 exception, and how to count. So, the first of the 5 terms is the calends. Every month has a calends, and the calends is the first of that month. Calends is pretty easy to remember because that's where we get the word calendar. Okay, the next term you need to know is the nones. The nones are usually the 5th of the month. And then we get the ides. And the ides are usually the 13th of the month. So, for example, in the month of January, the calends of January would be January 1st. The nones of January would be January 5th. And the ides of January would be January 13th. So these are the 3 basic important days in a Roman month: the calends, the nones, and the ides. Now that's 1, 2, 3 rules. Now we're going to talk about the exception. The exception to these rules is what I call in the jam months, the months of July, October, March, and May. They make this funky little name called jam. In these months, the nones are not on the 5th, but rather on the 7th. And the ides are not on the 13th, but on the 15th. Notice, you just add 2 days. So, quick recap. The calends are always on the 1st of the month. The nones are on the 5th, except for in the jam months, where they show up on the 7th. The ides refers to the 13th of the month, except for in the jam months, where the ides are on the 15th. So, in the month of March, a jam month, we would see the calends is on the 1st, the nones would be the 7th of March, and March 15th, the date of Julius Caesar's assassination, is the ides of March. So that's 1, 2, 3 rules and 1 exception. The next term that we need to learn is Pridie. And that's always the day before. So you would put Pridie in relation to the calends, nones, or ides. So Pridie calends of January would be the day before the 1st of January, December 31st. Pridie, the ides of March, would be the day before the ides of March, which is March 15th, and the day before that is the 14th. And then we have this other term, ante diem, which is talking about the number of days before. And we will get to that in a minute. Basically, you just have to know that ante diem means some number of days that isn't 1 day before the calends, nones, or ides. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms and 1 exception. And those are the basics of the Roman calendar. On the next slide, we're going to see what to do with all this information. Now that we've learned the terminology involved in the Roman calendar, we're going to see how the Romans applied this information. So, the big rule to remember is we are always counting backwards. Let's say that. Count back from one of the 3 important days in the month. You always have to count back from an ides or a nones or a calends. We've got the term Pridie, as we saw before, to make it easy if you're counting back just 1 day. But what happens when we want to count back multiple days? For example, let's see October 29th. To find October 29th on the Roman calendar, you can't just go to the 29th. We have to count back from a calend or a nones or an ide. You have to find the calends, nones, or ides that falls after October 29th, the nearest one. So, the nearest date on the calendar that comes after the 29th would be the calends of November. So we make a timeline. We're going to be counting back from November 1st which is the calends of November. So let's put the other days in. October 31st, October 30th, and October 29th. Of course, October 31st, Halloween, is what we would call Pretty calends of November, but we're not counting that one. We have to go back to the 29th. So the calends and the nones and the ides were so important that when the Romans counted, they had to include that day in their counting. So this is day 1. The calends is day 1. Then over here is day 2. This is October 31st, 30, 29. Then over here is day 3. And then finally, this is day 4. So they would call October 29th Ante Diem for calends of November. 4 days before the calends of November, even though it's not really 4 days, but it's only 4 days if you include both the calends and the 29th. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4 days before the calends of November. That's where October 29th falls. Here is another example of how we have to count back from a calend, ide, or nones in the Roman calendar to find another date. We will try July 9th. Remember, we're always thinking calends, nones, or ides. What is the nearest calend, nones, or ides date to fall after July 9th? Well, let's see. Here's July 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. Hey, you know what? I think the nearest date would be the calends of July. I'm sorry, not the calends, the ides of July. Remember, the ides usually fall on the 15th, but since this is a Jom month, July, October, March, or May, the ides of July is on the 15th instead of the 13th. So now we're going to count back from the ides to the 9th. The ides is day 1. We'll do it this way. This is day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So July 9th is considered Ante Diem 7 Ides July. So they count the 9th as 7 days before the Ides of July, even though 7 plus 9 is not 15. Remember, you have to include the calendar day and the actual day when you're doing your counting back.